The brightest memory of my childhood was my sister losing her mind. Not in the sense of acting wild or anything like that. No, I mean genuinely going insane. It all started suddenly, but at first, no one saw it as madness. So the whole ordeal dragged on for a couple more days before continuing for another 10 years. She was 16 at the time, and I was in 4th grade. As the older high school girl, she had her own room, while I lived with our parents in the living room. Not only that, but she also had a balcony. And that's where it all began. One morning, she woke up unusually early, even before our fathers. He told me this later. He usually got up at 6 a.m., and she lingered in the kitchen until everyone else woke up. When we all came into the kitchen that morning, she dropped a bombshell. Someone had been watching her at night, and not just anyone. Oh no, from that very balcony, from inside, as in through the balcony door. Everyone was stunned, even 10-year-old me, but we took it seriously. We lived on the 3rd floor. No bars on the balcony back then. Nowadays, I'd install bars even on the 3rd floor. You never know who might climb up and force a window open. Anything's possible. The solution, as I now realize, wasn't very smart. My father decided to dig into our savings and install bars on the balcony that same day. He called up a friend who knew people in that business, saying it was an emergency. They even had to cancel another job. Naturally, no one went to school or work that day. We were all busy with the bars and my hysterical sister. According to her, there was a bald man of average height, dressed in black, standing behind the door. I don't remember the details about his face, but I do recall her saying his arms were freakishly long. And no, this isn't some Slenderman story. It was just like that. He wasn't doing anything supernatural, or maybe she was too embarrassed to say. He just stood there watching. He didn't react when she saw him. Didn't react when she went to the kitchen either. My father, of course, yelled at her. Why didn't she call for help? She said she didn't know. And so passed the best of days, filled with screams and tears. They debated forever whether to call the police and what to even tell them. By evening, in the balcony had bars, and everyone calmed down a little. My sister was sent to sleep in her room. A stupid idea really, but there wasn't much space in our parents' room even without her. We didn't have a spare bed, and she somehow agreed. Probably because my father's shooting had made an impression. She was told to scream bloody murder if anything happened, which of course, she did as soon as possible. And let me paint the scene. You know, some shady guy climbed onto your balcony last night. You go to bed, thinking you've taken all necessary precautions, but you're still on edge. And then, from the room next to the balcony, as if confirming your worst fears, comes my sister's shrill scream. As you might guess, everyone freaked out. My sister ran into our room, screaming that he was there again. What should we do? No one went to check who was on the balcony at night. We're not in a horror movie. We grabbed our things and fled to the neighbors, explaining the situation first. School and work were canceled the next day too. Instead, my father, armed with the neighbor's hammer and the neighbor himself, went to inspect the balcony. It was only then that he first suspected something was off. The bars and the windows were completely untouched. No signs of forced entry. They didn't tell my sister, but they hinted to me not to press her about it. Probably afraid I'd trigger something. We spent the next night at home though. Slept is an overstatement. My sister refused to come back at first, and though this time our parents planned to take her into their room. She only agreed after they installed a latch on their door, and my father kept the neighbor's hammer close. No one really slept, but everyone pretended things were fine. Eventually, my parents dozed off, probably from exhaustion. My sister, on the other hand, stayed awake. I couldn't sleep either. I'd napped the neighbors and just stared at the digital clock on the nightstand. Then at 3:12 a.m. my sister screamed again. My parents bolted upright. I hid under the blanket. They thought the man had broken in, but she was yelling about the window. I heard my father sigh heavily and peeked out. No one was there. But my sister kept screaming, insisting someone was outside our 3rd floor window. Everyone understood then. My mother rushed to calm her, saying the police were on their way, but no police came. Instead, it was the paramedics. They took my sister away. My parents went with her, leaving me at the neighbors again. When they returned, they were alone. They packed her things and left again. They told me she was very sick and that I shouldn't talk about it. Not that I wanted to. Then came school, soccer practice, all that nonsense. My sister's problems faded from memory. I wasn't allowed to visit her, and I knew why. One night, I overheard my father talking to his aunt on the phone. He thought I was asleep. He told her my sister had schizophrenia. I remembered that word. The first thing I did when I got internet was look it up. Hers was severe. She saw that man at the window every night, screaming like she was being murdered. After that, I stopped missing her. She didn't feel like family anymore. 7 or 8 years passed. And if you're wondering why I'm telling this as a horror story when it's just my sister losing her mind, wait for it. One day, she came back. Her condition had improved significantly. She no longer saw the man in the windows but still took medication. It was August. I'd just gotten into university and was home for my last month of vacation. My parents had moved to a similar apartment. No balcony, 1st floor. My recovering sister moved in there. Now I had my own room and she lived with our parents. At first, I didn't know how to act around her, but I got used to her in a couple of weeks. I even spent more time with her, not because I'm a great brother, but because she was fascinating to watch. There was almost nothing left of the sister I remembered. She did everything differently. Understandable, after years of being cut off from normal life. She spoke softly, handled utensils like she'd never seen them before. My parents even considered filing a complaint, thinking the hospital had ruined her basic functions. She'd put clothes on inside out if no one showed her how. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I didn't feel sorry for her. If anything, being her made me uncomfortable. But like with many unpleasant things, I couldn't look away. When I left for university, my parents were visibly depressed. Understandable. My sister was in her 20s, severely ill, with only a high school education. The way she struggled with a knife killed any hope of her ever working. A burden, plain and simple. So my shock was even greater when, that February, my parents told me she was getting married. Turns out, in those 6 months, she'd mastered forks and spoons, and even started dating some guy. The guy wasn't much a mechanic, drank sometimes 7 years older than her. But he had a car, an inherited apartment, and a dacha. My parents were relieved they wouldn't have to spend their lives caring for her. I came home for the wedding in spring. It was clear this wasn't a love match. More like the best option for both, but my sister seemed happier than the groom. She'd changed again, becoming more animated. She even recognized me, asking about university. 6 months earlier, she wouldn't have cared. She wasn't her old self, more like someone entirely new, no longer sickly or depressed, which made everyone happy. Life seemed to be improving. For me, her, for our parents, for everyone but the groom. 3 years into their happy marriage, he went to prison. Rightfully so. Shortly after their wedding, people started disappearing in our town. By then, I'd moved away, so I don't know details, but the disappearances were random. Different ages, places, times. No one suspected a serial killer at first, thinking each case had its own cause. Until a neighbor at the dacha called the police, saying he'd seen one of the missing women there. The police, desperate for leads, hit the jackpot. In the groom's dacha freezer were remains of that woman and others. Traces of their tissues were also on dishes in the stove. So yeah, pretty clear why he's in prison. He denied it, of course. Said he ate the meat but didn't kill anyone. Didn't know where it came from. I was questioned as a witness. They wanted to know more about my sister, even though I hadn't lived there for years. I couldn't say much, just described her early symptoms and recovery. They didn't ask me anything else. My sister wasn't arrested. She was cleared. No victim tissue in her mouth, no witnesses placing her at the dacha. She played the grieving wife perfectly, crying to anyone who'd listen about marrying a monster. Even distant relatives came to comfort her. But when it came to where she'd live after the divorce, my parents refused to take her back. I'd begged them not to. Only we knew that she and her husband had lived at the dacha for the last 6 months. Because someone had smashed all the windows in their apartment. And they couldn't afford to fix them. There was no way she didn't know what was happening there. We didn't tell the police. It was too hard to accuse family, even strange family. Our fault, I guess. But why didn't they ask why no one had seen her at the dacha all summer? A mystery. But I'd long since learned that in our provincial town, everything works half-assed. I realized that back when a med student told me schizophrenia only causes auditory hallucinations, not visual ones. So my sister had been misdiagnosed. I know the first part is more detailed than the bland second half, but cut me some slack. I was 10, living with her and our parents. By the later events, I wasn't as involved. I still don't know what was really wrong with her, or the truth about her husband. But I sleep easier knowing that, left homeless, she moved in with distant relatives who fought with my parents over not taking her back. So much about this story remains unclear. Was she ever really sick? Did she live at the dacha? Why lie if not? I'm even curious about those broken windows. Though it seems I'm the only one. Now, I check her social media sometimes, scanning the news in her town, half expecting to see her with a new boyfriend or reports of missing people. Maybe I'm an idiot. Lightning doesn't strike twice. But like I said, it's hard to look away from something so unsettling.